Today can be the turning point in your life by making a simple decision.
Fundamental questions of navigation. Where am I? Where am I going? And how do I get there from here?
I invite the leaders of our planet to ask themselves these three questions before they make any crucial decisions.
But if you don't make decisions, you're going to stay right where you are.
We are all map makers.
We are in a time of transition.
If we're going to change, we have to change the direction that we're going.
Our planet needs leaders who know where they want to go.
When we change the direction we're going, then we want to make sure we're going in the right direction.
Leaders who can see the big picture.
Because if we're not, we're going to either go backwards or we're going to stay where we are.
Recognizing the psychological and the spiritual shifts and changes that need to be made, often from the inside to the outside.
To be able to shape your future, you have to be willing and able to change your paradigm.
Complex journeys require navigation. The path to the truth is one such journey. This is your GPS. Hairstyling services provided by J.D. Edwards Salon and Spa, Palmdale Shopping Plaza, Madera Street. Accessories provided by Chevette Williamson Jewelry. Standout jewelry for standout women. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to GPS, Global Paradigm Shift on Global 99.5 FM. I am your host, Michelle Malcolm, and as always, it's a pleasure to be in your company today. And what a day, what a week it has been as it relates to what we're going to be discussing on the show today. It's all about SBF and the continuing saga of FTX. Yesterday was a very interesting day in court. There was actual chaos, it seemed, as it relates to Sam Bankman-Fried and whether or not he would, in fact, fight extradition back to the United States. And it seemed so full of confusion that his own lawyer didn't know what was going on. I have never heard of a case where the lawyer goes to the prison looking for his client, only to be told, but your client going to court. What a time in Dumfries Church. This is what happened yesterday. A ball of confusion where the lawyers and FTX didn't seem to be on the same page. So we're going to start today's show by playing our first clip. And this is a story as a report as presented by, I think it's our news regarding what went down in court yesterday. Let's start there.
There was confusion in the courthouse today almost as soon as people sat down, with Sam Bankman-Fried's lawyer, Jerome Roberts, saying he wasn't even aware that Bankman-Fried was in the court. On multiple occasions during the first session, both Magistrate Shaka Servell and Deputy Director of Legal Affairs Franklin Williams, KC, asked for clarification on the purpose of the hearing, after Bankman-Fried's counsel, Jerome Roberts, almost immediately asked to speak in Servell's chambers. Shortly before entering the courtroom, there were questions over the whereabouts of Bankman-Fried's lawyer. We would later hear Roberts explained that he was delayed because he was unaware of the hearing. In fact, he says he was on his way to where he thought Bankman-Fried would be, at the Bahamas Department of Corrections. Roberts argued that it felt like things may be moving prematurely and without him. After another adjournment, questions arose about the purpose of the session, identifying who had driven the hearing and who summoned Bankman-Fried. The confusion as to who summoned the defendant to court grew as the Deputy Director of Legal Affairs rebutted that neither the Bahamian nor the American governments had requested Bankman-Fried's presence, calling Roberts' claim of ignorance incredible. He added that the counsel who called him on behalf of Bankman-Fried over the weekend to discuss his client's wishes was the same counsel seated alongside Roberts the week before, Williams also told the court that it was only after Roberts visited his client on Saturday that the story of Bankman-Fried's desire to waive his extradition began showing up in the press. But Roberts aggressively refuted the insinuation and declared he has had no contact with the media. Shortly after, Roberts asked for the court to be cleared again, this time so Bankman-Fried could confer with his American counsel, as Roberts said things are further ahead in the U.S. In the end, Serville addressed Bankman-Fried directly. The former CEO stood, fidgeting and struggling to maintain eye contact, and had to be corrected by an officer of the court. Serville said he was shocked in the courtroom, but said that as long as the officer in charge of the cell block bay at the magistrate's court authorized it, Bankman-Fried could have the phone call facilitated by Roberts in the courtroom. Court was adjourned at 12:15. Serville remanded Bankman-Fried back to BDOX pursuant to last week's ruling, and by 12:49 p.m., the former FTX CEO was on his way back to the corrections center.
So before we actually start this conversation with my guests today, C. Alan Johnson and Tenneil Desmangles, I just want to run through all of the highlights of what took place yesterday. So there was this confusion initially in court, as you would have just heard in that report. And keep in mind that there are international folks who have flown here, both media and persons who supposedly lost quite a bit of money in the FTX collapse. One group is led by someone known as BitBoy Crypto. And he put out a video yesterday that was very damaging, I believe, with regard to the allegations that he made about some of the things that he said was that it's like this tug of war between U.S. officials and Bahamian officials because the Bahamians want to keep Sam Bankman-Fried in the Bahamas for at least a year because he alleged that there are possible conflicts of interest as it relates to persons high on the totem pole who may have been able to get their money out of FTX before bankruptcy hearings began. I'm not going to play that part of his video because some of the things that he said were quite inflammatory, I believe, particularly without proof. But I will play his account of what actually happened inside the courtroom because he and his team were there. So let's just go to that, and then we will talk more with my guests.
Hey guys, welcome to BitBoy Crypto. My name is Ben. We are here in the Bahamas. We're eating a little fish fry right now. And we just got back from going to court with Sam Bankman-Fried for his extradition hearing. And let me tell you, it was fireworks. It was absolutely insane what we witnessed this morning. So I get there at 6 a.m. It's first come, first served to get into the courtroom. So we had about 6 people with us or so, not counting security. And we were going to go into the courtroom and see the hearing. We expected his parents to be there. Expected, a lot of media to be there, which they were. Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Bloomberg, Reuters, AP, they were all there this morning. And so long and short of it is, could have got here at 9 and still got in. But we were out at 6 a.m. waiting outside the courtroom. We go inside the courtroom and there's Sam. The real story here is not BitBoy meets SBF. The real story here is what happened in the hearing. It was absolutely insane. So from the moment we get inside the hearing, we have the lawyers, the lawyer for Sam Bankman-Fried, and then the lawyer for the Attorney General for the Bahamas arguing back and forth. And they keep talking about, why are we here today? Why are we here today? Why are we here today? Well, everybody knew why we were here, right? We were here for an extradition hearing. So he was going to use, I think it was called Motion 17. He was going to move the court to waive his right to stay in the Bahamas and so he could go in the United States. And let me tell you, he wanted desperately to get out. There were several times he was shaking. There were several times he stood up and motioned over to his lawyer and said, you have to get me out of here today. Today, you have to get me out of here. He said that multiple times. He did not want to stay in the Bahamas another minute. The FBI was there. The IRS was there. There were people from the U.S. Embassy that were there. Guys, there was literally a jet running on the tarmac to take SBF away. what unfolds is quite an interesting tale. If you've been watching what we've been doing here, we talked about it on Saturday night at our panel. What we did is we brought down investors from FTX, investors from Celsius, who lost a lot of money. We brought them down here to the Bahamas. Originally, we were going to do a protest. We wanted to do a protest to get him arrested. Well, we had it all planned. And of course, he got arrested on Monday night, which changed what we want to do. Well, this changed things dramatically. So on Saturday, we all went up to the police station to file criminal charges against SBF. Because basically the story is nobody had filed criminal charges against him. So since nobody had filed criminal charges against him, that meant that the Bahamas didn't have to arrest him. They were only going to arrest him on behalf of the U.S. charges. However, we went there on Saturday. Sunday morning, they arranged a special meeting for our people to come and actually file these reports, so they didn't take them Saturday. It's weird. 1 hour after we were up at the police station on Saturday, here comes the announcement that Sam Bankman-Fried is going to be extradited, and he's going to waive his rights. Well, Sunday, we go back up there. One of the ladies with us, Rebecca, she filled out a police report, got it signed, got it sent up. And so over this court hearing, you kept hearing them talk about a mysterious event that happened over the weekend and a mysterious document that the legal team for Sam Bankman-Fried had not seen yet. And so what it all boiled down to is this. We filed this police report. Rebecca has a document basically explaining his wrongdoing, and the court used that to stop the extradition. So technically what the legal counsel wanted for Sam Bankman-Fried is to view this document and be able to decide what to do from there. He wanted to talk to his lawyers in the United States. So what happens is that basically after we had to go to the courtroom twice, we come back in, and here's where it ends. Sam Bankman-Fried is begging his lawyer to let him out, begging him for this motion 17. And the lawyer says, no, we can't. We have to look at this document first and talk to your lawyers in the United States. So they arrange for everybody to leave the courtroom and them to have this phone call. Well, while they're having this phone call, everybody leaves. The prosecuting attorney leaves. The last thing that the judge told Sam Bankman-Fried was you're now remanded by the court. Remanded, I think that's the right word. Basically where he was going to have to stay in court in the Bahamas. Now, Sam didn't understand this when he was hearing it. When he was hearing this, he took that to mean that he was going to get this call with U.S. lawyers, get to go back into court and get extradited. But that is not, in fact, what happened.
Okay, so for the record, he was wrong. The document that they were insisting that Sam inspect first was not whatever they filed with the police over the weekend, but it was, in fact, the indictment that was being handed down by the U.S. government, for which they were using as grounds to have him repatriated to the United States. That was the document that the lawyers wanted him to be able to see and review and discuss with his lawyers in the United States before making a final decision. So they left court, no decision was made at that point. Then later in the day, his local lawyers speak to Eyewitness News to say that, in fact, Sam has decided to waive his rights. So here now, I tell you all, soap opera ain't got nothing on this. Here now is that clip with his local lawyers saying that he has decided not to fight extradition.
Throughout my involvement with Sam, he has indicated an overwhelming desire to put the customers right and to make the customers whole. In light of that, and notwithstanding the strongest possible legal advice that we have offered to Sam, he has agreed to be voluntarily extradited to the United States of America. The process now is that we as counsel will prepare the necessary documents to trigger the court so that a time and date will be fixed for the extradition process to continue and to be completed. I emphasize that Mr. Bankman-Fried wishes to put the customers right, and that is what has driven his decision to be voluntarily extradited to the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, the next step in this process is for Mr. Bankman-Fried to appear before the Magistrates Court so that the completion of the extradition hearing can take place. Thank you very much.
Okay, so fast forward to today. His local lawyers appeared before the courts today. Sam was not with them. I saw some reports floating around, unconfirmed reports, which were later proven to be untrue, about Sam being rushed to the hospital. You know, we Bahamians, we like to create stories. You know, we can come up with a story now. We good at that. Come to find out, the young man is comfortably at the prison. His lawyers showed up at court today without him, assuming that they showed up to sign the extradition papers. I'm assuming when they came out of court, even though yesterday they had a lot to say, today this was their response.
Can you confirm whether or not you guys have a date or a time for the continuation of his extradition hearing? Okay.
Mum's the word. So with all of that sort of brought us up to speed to a certain degree. We're now going to begin this conversation about all of this drama that's been going on surrounding Sam Bankman-Fried and FTX and extradition and all of the media and allegations and who's on the ground working with these American people and who committing treason. Listen. They need to do a blockbuster movie, but all of this. Bahamas will be starring straight through. And I do sure that's a good thing. But it is what it is. This is what we're going to be discussing on the show today. Welcome back to GPS, Tenneil Desmangles and C. Alan Johnson. Gentlemen, it's a pleasure to have you here today.
Thanks once again for having me.
Certainly a pleasure.
All right. Where do we begin?
Can I begin with his arrest? Just a little bit more for clarity. His arrest was pre-indictment, the release of the indictment. He was arrested on some charges that was filed in regards to, I think it's the SEC or the CTFC, who they are, and so he did not, the CFTC. So that was the primary held with the intent of the extradition order. So essentially, he has so far two, maybe more, individual charge from organizations that are being charged. The federal indictment from out of New York, the CFTC. I think the SEC has maybe some pending charges, as well as some additional states have some violations that would most likely be filed against him, even though he may have the primary one with the feds would take precedent, or is given precedence over the rest of them. He's facing some multiple punches, almost to the point where if he by some error get on technicality of one, adjustments can be made on the other. So he's going to be having a couple of blows coming at him from different directions.
Well, they're talking about 115 years in the United States.
Yeah, what happens though, very rarely they do that consecutively.
So, we know it's going to be
he may be looking at 20 to 25.
But even so, at the age of 30, you're talking not getting out until about 55, 60.
Right. If he's did on the high end scale of the sentencing guideline, on the lower end, 10 years, he'll have to do, I think, 90% of that, 9 years.
Initially, it seems that he was thinking that he was going to fight this extradition, take his chances in the Bahamas, and that was until he got arrested and was invited to spend a little bit of time at B-Docks, formerly known as Foxhall Prison.
Still known as, just renamed, so make you more. They want you to be. It's still Foxhall Prison.
It's still Foxhall.
They rename it. They don't want you to know you're going to hell.
But they got a new name nowadays. So within less than a week, He
2
figured,
days.
boy,
2 days.
Dennis faced them 25, 30 years in a U.S. jail that have to deal with this. And I don't even think he was ever put in general population in our local prison.
He was in the hospital ward. He has not seen the slop buckets yet.
Yeah.
He haven't seen the real roach and the rats. He haven't seen any of those.
Yeah, if he couldn't make it in there, what you think was gonna happen when he get in general population? People say, boy, you can take your chances going to the States, so you can throw away the key, but at least he can be in a decent facility. Well, he can't lock you over there.
If I was the embassy, I would have let them go into general population along with one of our representatives to take the new test, the new confession, saying, just tell us everything and you'll get out.
Wow. Meanwhile, the Bit Boy guy, the Ben from Bit Boy Crypto, like I said, I decided after watching his complete video that I would not play it in its entirety because he said some very serious things in that.
Well, can I say that besides his conclusions, the information he provided is in the public domain if you're following the case very closely. I could say though the 1,500 names has not been released, they are now known to the courts in the United States. And they will eventually be made as part of the public disclosure. There's a number of media houses that is challenging the secrecy or privacy part of non-disclosure as part of the federal bankruptcy rules. So creditors and account holders, etc., will most likely be named. And so it doesn't matter even if it isn't named right away. It's only a matter of time that those 1,500 individuals be disclosed. And the same thing for the data conversation that they're having concerning access to the data, where the Bahamas is demanding access to the data. Those data will become part of a public domain showing the accounts. Right now, I personally think that the reason why those data has not been disclosed is that this grand jury is still meeting in regards and evidence gathering as an additional to indictments of additional individuals that will be involved. Because as they go through this data, they're going to find new players because the feds have moved to get copies not only of the data of the servers, but also the backup of those servers over the number of months that has been there. So they may have access to the complete history of this organization, depending on the backup arrangements that FTX have had with its service provider, Amazon and other individuals. And then the Bahamas is not going to be the only player in this. You're going to have some other jurisdiction that even though they may not be as much damage or certain protection may be provided to them, they're going to want to see for a lot of reasons. We have tax exchange agreements. We have mutual cooperation agreements. We have a whole lot of things that involves wanting to know exactly what is happening. One of the things that the charges you have to consider levied against Sam is the fact, and against others, is that no matter where in the world using the United States currency, the money laundering and wire and all these other different things it'll be just as if though you committed a crime in the United States. So we could expect some fallout in the Bahamas if any wrongdoing is done, as well as from other countries.
When you say fallout, what you mean?
What you mean? Legal capture of individuals who may knowingly or unknowingly commit the law. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. And then you have to also look at those $100 million clawback. It's a host of different things. Just for some context, is that we have the $300 million worth of properties. I think it was on your show, Michelle, where when everybody was saying there was $70 million worth of real estate, I said, no, it's about $300 million. Mm-hmm. That's only the $300 million that eventually was adopted that's on the actual platform. But as they begin to examine these records for Alameda, as well as FTX, you will be able to see the other hundreds of millions of dollars that may have been spent in the Bahamas and other areas acquiring additional real estate over the last year. Because what happens is, unless that money came directly out of his personal pocket or whatever, if it came through any of the company funneling or distribution, that record is now on the record. And the accusation that is made by Ray, the CEO of FTX, that properties were bought in people's name on behalf of Sam Bankman-Fried or his companies, you will begin those transactions will begin to become laid bare, and they are now that's money laundering and wire fraud, and so that's another dimension of this case that is definitely going to impact the Bahamas.
Wow.
And I only look at the Bahamas part of it because if I bought properties from on his behalf, knowingly I didn't have the money, these $1 million properties, I should know that it was my intent or some form of intent to hide who the ownership is. So even if you don't know which properties I specifically bought, you will know that I've received tens of millions of dollars for some reason. And these are all going to be part of what is called the clawback regime of this bankruptcy case. For those people who talk about the NGOs and stuff, after 90 days, any donations made before 90 days or older, before the bankruptcy is filed, those are protected. Most of the people that you see, like the politicians and other people who may decide to return the money or transfer to another NGO, is doing so for marketing purposes, not by any legal requirement. Only the first 90 days immediately preceding the bankruptcy filing, they'll be subject to clawback for donations.
So you think, and Tenneil, we're going to bring you in on this right now. So you think that there's a possibility that some high-end names may be caught up in this and little egg on the face, to say the least?
Definitely, they above the average behemoth in access, connectivity, whether it be politically exposed individuals or financially exposed individuals or the club of elites in the Bahamas who went around this caucus to enjoy the sweetness of what was brought to the country. We have to consider in less than 1 year, less than $1 million a day that was spent on real estate properties, not counting those that we don't have any account for, that was spent on and in the Bahamas. And so you can see just from that perspective, we were not big players inside of this. And when you consider the monies and of assets that was taken directly in custody by the commission, as well as a huge allegation that we actually minted additional currencies before we put them into custodial wallets, and the $600 million that has been tracked. The $600 million is the hack, a separate money that was stolen off the exchange, now is back in the Bahamas, sitting on another exchange in the Bahamas. And so the stolen money that's made it all around the world went into what is called, like, for a simpler term, a washing machine. But the fact that they use such a small washing machine, let's say if I'm trying to launder money, stolen funds, I put it in with a few $1 billion other monies so that my money would be hidden in the billions. Well, they did not. They put this huge amount of money into one of those smaller laundering or washing machines. And so you could track, if Michelle put in $1, he put in $1, everybody put in $1, I put in 100. When the $100 goes back to this other wallet, you could then say, you assume it's the person who put in 100, where you could have multiply distributed, and that is now in the Bahamas. So it's funny that here it is that these stolen cryptocurrencies went all around the world through dozens, if not hundreds of different accounts trying to mask this identity, and has been able to track on the blockchain to now reside in the Bahamas again. So why would you move this money all around the world and bring it back to the Bahamas?
Tenneil, let's hear from you in all this drama.
Well, it certainly has been a very interesting chain of events, to say the least. Michelle, when I was here last, you said the onion will unravel, and certainly we've seen that.
This is true.
But I would say that C. Alan, you did hit several really good points. Certainly, when we think about the myriad of cases and allegations against fraud currently right now, among the most interesting for me are two standouts. One is the real estate, and that you're absolutely right. When we speak about real estate, it's one of the most easiest vehicles, in fact, for individuals to perform illicit financial activity, considering that these transactions can, in fact, be conducted through an intermediary. These funds are usually held in escrow, and as a result thereof, if you don't want anyone to, I suppose, know the beneficial ownership of a particular asset, it's certainly really good to use intermediaries. It's sad to see the erosion of investors' capital, and certainly, as you mentioned, the clawback. We're going to see certainly the real estate market here affected, considering the exposure that we will have in that regard. Another concern for me as well is data. I think that it really is all about data. You did note that we did have a hack that was about $600 million in hack. I thought it was a very convenient hack. But what's something very interesting about these assets, and while there's a lot been going on in the industry, I can speak to the traceability of these assets. It really is the fact that once our regulators have the resources necessary, be it IT or personnel, these assets are very easy to track. As you said, we went around the mulberry bush with the 600 million that was hacked proceeds, but at the end, if you put them through tumbling services, which are essentially a laundromat, like you alluded to, while we can in fact masquerade certain wallet addresses, I guess obfuscating the origin of the depositor as well as the destination of the funds tumbled, at the end, it's all based on blockchain. This is an immutable record. Blockchain is the technology these assets are built on. And the thing about it is it has a very powerful feature for asset tracing and forfeiture. And that's the fact that there's that's the principle of non-repudiation, and that it's accountability. No one can say that a transaction took place or did not take place when each and every transaction is recorded on these blockchains, regardless of whatever the blockchain is. It's an unalterable record. And it's good to see that our law enforcement locally were able to perform the necessary to assist the U.S. I know many people said that maybe our law enforcement didn't act as quickly as they should have. I think that's an opinion piece. But I think that it's going to be very interesting the next few weeks. We see how this unfolds. Another very interesting point that I thought about as well when you mentioned tax in the various tax agreements and information exchange documents that we have in place. The thing is that should we have, when we think about data protection, for example, sure, we need to provide this data to the United States government, the SEC, the CFTC, to enable their investigations. But what happens when, for example, SBF, FTX, digital markets held funds for a European Union citizen that was domiciled in the Bahamas? Now, the thing is that for this European citizen, if he has an entity over here, if he has any revenue or income generating activities here, he will still be liable for tax reporting purposes in the EU. But what's more, the EU has an interesting feature about data protection as well. So when we think about taxes and data go hand in hand. So under the General Data Protection Regulation of the European Union, when we talk about the hacks and the disclosure of this data to now the US, things may get even more interesting, because now, depending on how many EU citizens that we do have domiciled in the Bahamas that may have had funds custodied by Sam Bankman-Fried, now there may be a push and pull as to whether the EU wants to disclose this data to the US, or if these data subjects or these individuals actually want to have their data out in the wind, stating they had 50 million in British pounds in the Bahamas.
The implications are clearly far-reaching. Hold on, Tiana, because we like 19 minutes past our break time. The implications are clearly far-reaching, and even though many of our officials are trying to, for want of a better term, downplay this, to say that this should not have any implication on our reputation as a financial services sector, I don't see how it could not. And maybe y'all who are more in that field could explain to me, to help me to understand their line of thinking. I agree that this could have happened anywhere, but it happened here. And we have seen where these international regulators, they've been hot for us for a little while. I would be looking for any kind of excuse to push us further under the bus. So does this now give them the excuse that they've been looking for? I want you to stick a pin in the thought. We got to take this break. On the other side of the break, we're going to dive more into the reputational damage that this is possibly doing to the Bahamas. Stay with us. This is GPS.
Understanding your microbiome, also known as your gut ecosystem, can change everything you thought you knew about nutrition, digestion, immunity, and metabolism. Keeping your gut ecosystem healthy and balanced is essential. Ultimate Microbiome by Longevity was specifically formulated to optimize this ecosystem. It provides the advanced support your gut needs through prebiotic, probiotic, and postbiotic supplementation. Our unique blend of probiotics includes Lactobacillus and Plantarum, healthy bacteria that can help prevent harmful bacteria from taking over your gut. Increasing your gut's population of beneficial bacteria creates a more balanced gut microbiome, which has been shown to aid in weight loss, skin health, sleep, mood, and may even help with seasonal allergies. Ultimate Microbiome also promotes the production of postbiotics. Postbiotics are key to help regulate your gastrointestinal health. To enhance digestion, Digizyme Multi-Enzyme Complex, a blend of 5 specific enzymes, has been added to Ultimate Microbiome. It can help break down food so your body can better absorb nutrients. Plus, we've added our proprietary I-26 hyperimmune egg powder to aid in the elimination of disease-causing gut bacteria and help your body balance its immune response. Ultimate Microbiome, the scientific, proprietary, and holistic approach to gut health that helps optimize your body's entire gut ecosystem. To learn more, contact your longevity associate.
Welcome to Sunshine Auto, the hardest place on the planet for rims, tints, and tires.
We are your auto superstore for rims, Lexani, Azaras, Trueform, Western, Lux, Fuel, Trackline, Tough, Rough Racing, Velocity, Mud, All-Terrain, and low-profile tires, cars, homes, and commercial window tinting. At Sunshine Auto, we put God first and customer is king.
Blessed love.
To stay healthy, it's crucial to make sure you get the nutrition you need every day. But it's difficult to get all your recommended vitamins and minerals from food alone. Even in the United States, 94% of people are deficient in at least one nutrient. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 by Longevity is a simple, convenient, and affordable way to help your body get the essential nutrients it needs. It's an advanced plant-driven multivitamin mineral complex that contains certified organic whole foods, trace minerals, and antioxidants. BTT 2.0 supports your body's natural defense system with a proprietary blend of energy-boosting and body-loving nutrients, plus prebiotics, probiotics, amino acids, and enzymes that support digestion. With an unusually high ORAC score of 8,000, you get even more antioxidants to help combat free radicals that can cause damage to your cells. But to get the most benefit and value from any multivitamin, your body must be able to break down the nutrients so you can fully absorb them. Otherwise, they'll just pass through your system without doing any good. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 was specially formulated with synergizing cofactors to ensure you get maximum nutrient absorption. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 is the easiest way to give your body the balance and complete daily vitamin, mineral supplement it needs for optimal support of your overall health. To learn more, contact your longevity associate.
This portion of GPS is brought to you by Tiki Bikini Hut at Junkanoo Beach. Great food, cool tropical drinks, and family fun in the sun. Welcome back to GPS Global Paradigm Shift on Global 99.5 FM. Michelle Malcolm in your company, along with C. Alan Johnson and Tenneil Desmangles, and we're talking about this continuing saga of FTX and SBF and all the drama that has unfolded and continues to unfold. Every day, it seems, something else is happening that is like taking us to the next level of what? And I
Just
dare
2 more years to go. Just 2 more years to go.
boy, look here, this is a serious thing. Now, like we said prior to the break, some of our officials would say, "Oh, this is not going to damage us reputationally, and it really has nothing to do with our financial services sector, and we're going to come out of this just fine." I think everybody's worrying about we don't have to worry so much about it, and this is nothing unusual. Businesses fail all the time in countries all over the world, which is true. And countries like the U.S., shouldn't be throwing shade at the Bahamas because they got their own skeletons in their closet. But it's true. This is true. U.S. should not be throwing rock at nobody, considering their own record. But we in the U.S. and the laws would apply to the big boys on the on the playground. Don't apply to the little boys, whether we like it or not. And I admire Fred Mitchell and his he's come at them hard and talk to them hard and thing, but it is what it is. We ain't the big boys. So I agree with the sentiment that they should be the last set of people to be throwing any rock at us, because they got their own issues. But they are the big boys on the playground, and we the little fellas, and they could easily crush us if they so desired. They only gotta say one thing: I can pull y'all pre-clearance from y'all, and I bet you everybody will shut up with their tail between their legs, and they'll be dead quiet. I mean, we talking about, I guess, a David and Goliath situation. Now, yeah, David was able to bring Goliath down, but even that situation was a little different, because I dare say that David may not have had skeletons in his closet that Goliath could use against him. So, what do you guys make of this? Do you believe that our officials are just trying to keep everybody calm when they say, don't worry about it, and this is going to blow over, etc.? Or should some people really, really be a little concerned right now? What are your thoughts?
I think we should. Before we get to this, let me just speak to the data the other guest spoke about. The GDPR data does not cover crimes, tax evasion, etc. However, we missed an opportunity. People have heard me talk about this for over a decade. The Bahamas is the only place in the world to offer constitutional data protection. No, we don't offer, that had the potential to offer constitutional data protection, constitutional data privacy, and constitutional data sovereignty. We have never even considered these laws. In fact, I'm going to say to you, there is no data protection laws in the Bahamas. We have laws that refer to data protection, but from a digital standpoint, there's no data protection. In the same way, there's no protection, no ability to enforce this, for the mere fact that the digital domain realm we're in, and this is where SBF said, if you saw his interview a month before on Bloomberg, where he said that the Bloomberg financial people said to them, this is nothing more than a Ponzi scheme. And he says, no, it's not. Not in the digital realm where we are. This is not a Ponzi scheme in the digital realm. The problem is we had a blended of fiat and laws that are involved with it. And so when I go back to the data protection type environment or the capabilities, we have let me see if I get them right. I think I made a note. We have fintech legislation, reg tech legislation, supervisory tech legislation, insure tech legislation, and property tech legislation. So fintech is financial technology, reg tech is regulatory technology, sup tech is supervisory technology, insure tech is insurance technology, prop tech is property technology. It's this combination of legislative laws that interact with each other that actually gives us the tool that is necessary for monitoring and controlling the digital realm. No laws exist in our country in regarding to these blended type environment. in addition, we need some data legislation and digital legislation. In fact, I have documented 25 different laws in the Bahamas that has to be created or amended as a compendium of bills that would create an environment to make us the new destination for become the digital financial services jurisdiction of the world. So the commission, nor the government, nor the police department has any ability to actually monitor any of these companies in the digital realm from the Bahamas, though they may have can seek a consultation from other firms, but they would also be doing them in isolation, in retroactively looking back, as opposed to being able to monitor in real time. None of this actually exists in any type of environment, giving the Bahamas the capability of being the first in the world. And Bahamians are in each of these singular disciplines that we just need to bring them together and have a big Kong salad type mix up and create this wonderful type stew, which brings us back to this reputational damage.
But before you go there, do you believe that the fact that the Bahamas was the first or among the first in the world to be heading in this direction is yet another reason for entities like the EU and the financial services sector bodies that determine, who they're going to blacklist, etc. Is this yet another reason for them to try to come at us because they trying to destroy any chance of us competing where they think we should not be competing?
Well, let's go back to the pre-DARE Act. For those who knows me, when the DARE Act was introduced in 2020, I was maybe the only person in the country said what we were doing was the equivalent of taking down the fence, as opposed to OECD and the FAT and everything. We were taking down the fence, installing locking gates, and declaring that we are now safer. It was a naked exposure to money launderers, drug trafficking, child pedophilia, you name the crimes that happens in the realm. It basically opened the gateway for it. Now let's go back to what the Secretary General, whatever, of the OECD said pre even our enactment of the DARE bill. He was being interviewed during our last blacklisting, and the question was posed to him: when will you stop blacklisting the Bahamas? His quote, I wish I had that clip. His quote was, "When the Bahamas cease to exist." That's what the chairman or whatever he was of the OECD, the head of the OECD, said. My question then was he talking about we cease to exist as a country, or were he talking that we cease to exist as a financial services jurisdiction? No one ever asked, but that was a powerful statement. So that means no matter what we do, we will be continuously backlisted and gray listed. So this is why it was so important for me, having spent 46 years in the development of technology before desktop computers and laptops and smartphones and everything else. I've been there. I've been there with blockchain before blockchain came, or the so-called birth of blockchain in 2009. No, blockchain existed before 2009. I've been in technology before the World Wide Web. I've been in technology before the TCP connection in 1981 that allows you to talk to other computers. I've been through the birth of all of these technologies. I know Bahamians in these fields around the world. When we typically speak about technology in the Bahamas, we talk about the tip of the iceberg, the consumer aspect of it. I'm talking about what's under the water, the iceberg, for those of us in the creative world. Approaching the age of 60 years now, the only reason why I can talk about this is because at the time when myself and my twin brother sat in the room, we were children, we were teenagers, and everybody else in the room was in their 30s, 40s, and 50s. They are all dead now. And so the fact is that I had the opportunity to sit in these rooms from the age of 16 years old gives me this advantage point. At 60, they would be 85 at minimum or older, with the exception of Bill Gates, who was also part of that team of individuals even when I was at IBM. And so I've seen the birth of all of these technologies and understand them from a creation aspect, not from a consumption standpoint. And so what we have is a unique opportunity to address this new reality of where the world is going. You've seen the turmoil in the technology companies. You've seen the turmoil with the central bank depository notes, coins, which will replace regular currency. We're seeing not just cryptocurrency, we're seeing the digitization of commerce, because you've seen advancement in PayPal and other pay services and financial technology. And so, again, this gives us a unique opportunity, because constitutionally, the ability to give constitutional data privacy, protection, and sovereignty is it's like saying this. Imagine that oil is what runs the world, and the Bahamas is the only place in the world that has oil. That is what constitutional data privacy, protection, and sovereignty does. Because unlike where you can change a law to give access to data, if you wanted access to Sea Island data and he's a digital citizen in the Bahamas, you would have to have a constitutional referendum. We don't do well for constitutional referendum. You have to change the constitutional aspect so these people can have access to these data. In fact, every data company in the world today will be subject to the laws of the Bahamas, because Facebook and Google and Amazon and TikTok and all of these individuals in all countries, there's a fight for data supremacy right now. And so for data supremacy, basically will have controlled the world, including financial services. And so the fact that the Bahamas, as I am aware, is the only jurisdiction that can invoke this type of environment, then creates an environment where we will basically become like the ASCAP, for people who are familiar with music, and the BMI of the data world. So nobody's data, like your guest said, nobody's data in the world will be able to be used without consent of the Bahamian regulation.
And of course, this is something that they
but let me just say, when we talk about the problem is, there's a statement. I think I remember the statement. I think it was said by Martin Luther King, and how you use the involvement, conscientious it is sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity towards technology that exists in the Bahamas. They are sincere in their ignorance and conscientious in their stupidity when it comes to technology. And we have seen this by the billions of dollars. We've spent maybe $3 billion in the last 4 decades on technology, and we can't even get a paperless document. We call things technology. We have talking heads who talk about technology all day long. And it's just not technology as we know it. Those are the consumer aspect of technology. And the Bahamas, being the most digitally prepared country in the world for the last 2 decades, have yet to even tap into its actual potential. I actually believe that the administration.
Let's hear from Tenneil on this. Let's hear from Tenneil. Tenneil, what are your thoughts?
Well, a few things going on. Definitely agree with C. Allen when he says that, right now we're at an interesting time where we're seeing the paradigm shift. I think that we first saw the convergence in fintech, where we saw a lot of startups and incumbents start to leverage technology a bit more to, in fact, improve the efficacy of whatever services that they decided to provide. But as we know, whenever we talk about technology or reducing certain manual processes in favor of something more automated, that would obviously mean a reduction in our costs. This is something that we've seen not only in fintech, but insurance, as we've said. But another very interesting point that you noted, C. Allen, was RegTech. I think that RegTech is a good point, and it may be a good path to take for us locally in the Bahamas, considering that, well, we did have the fallout that took place on our shores. Nonetheless, if we do leverage these technologies, and it's not just simply blockchain, but you have several emerging technologies that can, in fact, improve the way our supervisors supervise. Because, as we know, if there's any filing, if there's any reporting that's done, it's usually post-mortem, as you said. But what would be advantageous for the regulators, in fact, is to be able to monitor transactions in real time. Now, transaction monitoring is key from a compliance aspect. Now, I guess I'm just answering the second question in this one as well. As Michelle asked, well, will this have any impact to us as a jurisdiction? Well, as you both know, they're usually ready to put us on the black list, the gray list, the blue list, the purple list without even thinking. But the thing about it is, when we look at how a risk rating for an individual or an entity is calculated, it's calculated based on the geographic or jurisdiction in which this entity or individual resides, any payment products or services, as well as any transactional or delivery channel or infrastructure that's used. But for now, let's just talk about the jurisdiction. So the thing about it is, when we talk about the cost to maintain certain counterparty relationships, even in the private banking industry or even in the commercial banking industry, may be impacted, considering that the risk rating for the Bahamas as a jurisdiction will most likely go up. As a result thereof, for the counterparty, it's going to be more costly for them to comply. And as such, in absence of that counterparty, we're going to need more resources locally. And as a trickle down, it's going to cause whatever local technological company that wants to operate, it's going to be more costly. So I think that it's going to be a very interesting next few months. I would say that regulation, AML, data protection is very important. I think that we're going to see a lot of requirements coming out about treasury, capital, insolvency coming out of this. But to say that we'll come out unscathed with not a tarnished reputation or any negative bad press is unfathomable. When you think about compliance, they perform the what is it, the LexisNexis and the World Checks, and all of this is a compendium of data that's gotten from open source information. So open source, be it Google, Yahoo Finance, whoever. So just because we have individuals that are already doing business with the Bahamas, that when their compliance personnel does the World Check and they do the LexisNexis, as a result thereof, the country or the entity or the individual may not have that very same risk rating as before. So definitely lots of regulation coming up, and it's going to be a whirlwind.
To say the least. We have a call on the line. Caller, welcome to GPS.
Good afternoon, Michelle. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Afternoon to you, guys. I listened to the entire show so far, and it's, of course, pretty interesting. A few points of reflection. One, what a few months makes, eh? From the Bahama ballroom to the prison cell.
Serious thing.
Yeah, that's some heavy duty stuff. I have a question for C. Allen, and C. Allen, this is a question, a genuine question of inquiry, not to provoke you or to get you goad up as far as the government regime is concerned. My point of interest or inquiry to you is this. In respect to all of the things that you've been promoting, as to how we could have by now enhanced our country's ability and reputation in the digital arena, have a twofold question. Have you yourself made any inroads with the government in respect to getting them to hear you, or did anybody initiate any contact with you to find out what it is you were talking about as to how they could understand and implement the things that you have been saying and recommending to the Bahamas? Care to respond?
Yes, not since election. The only person who have contacted me in recent weeks is the leader of Her Majesty's Official Opposition, Michael Pintard, to get a better understanding of this digital realm I speak of and what exactly can be considered to actually stimulate the economy. His initial contact was to find out what could be done from a digital standpoint to bring about growth in the economy, and then this FTX jumped off and have a better understanding of this particular realm. Here's the problem that I know this administration is not going to contact me. And hopefully that the individuals, I'm going to begin more active in speaking again, Michelle. We've been promising to have some consistent shows, is to understand what is exactly these 25 laws that has to be changed and modified, including one law that just recently passed concerning this Sovereign Wealth Fund Act they struck down that has to be changed and modified because it opens the door for more aspects of corruption. I don't want to go into that today. Here's what I want you to note, though, because
I was suspicious of you on that very same point you made. I didn't like the tone of what I heard.
Right, but let me give you some things that absolutely the first laws that we must pass, and I want you to listen to these 5 or 6 laws.
See, Alan, before you go there, we actually have another call on the line.
Let me just tell him the laws. Let me just tell him. Freedom of information law. We need an accountability law. We need a transparency law. We need an anti-corruption law. We need an integrity law, and we need a whistleblower law. And I want you to imagine that you have a freedom of information, real, not this thing that we've been talking. Because 90% of the people have been talking about freedom of information in Bahamas has been wrong. An accountability law, so you could look back and forward. And a transparency law, an actual anti-corruption law, okay, an actual integrity law, world-class laws, and a whistleblower protection act. Do you really think our leadership in this country want those 6 laws?
Okay, Michelle, since you have that other call waiting, let me just quickly wrap up by saying this. I seriously encourage and invite any Bahamian individual or Bahamian family who has had their funds unjustly tied up, frozen in banks in this country, and the banks not allowing them to have their monies, i.e. the Derrick Rose situation, to please look at now taking advantage of this opportunity to bring attention to your plight, because right now, even as bad as this situation is, and as much as this is going to embarrass us and we're going to take a reputational hit, I think this is the silver lining now is for Bahamians who've been done wrong by the system here to stand up and to express and to share their problems so that we could bring some attention to the Bahamians to get justice in this country for the wrongs that would have been apparently, actually, or allegedly done to them. Thank you, Michelle.
All right, thanks for calling. Just for the record, and we're going to take a break because we lost that other caller, but just for the record, I know we like to, as Bahamians, talk about the shortcomings of our country and what we lack in terms of legislation, etc. But just for the record, I saw, as I was preparing to come in today, a story that came across my feed where Wells Fargo in the United States is being charged or has been required to pay $1.7 billion because of, I have to be careful how I say this, but in other words, they were doing some unfair things to their clients as well.
Facilitating, yes.
Right. Overcharging in some instances, freezing accounts when they shouldn't have been frozen, all kind of skullduggery.
But Michelle,
Wells Fargo.
But this is what your guest and I are saying. Our guest is saying, if you adopt these regulatory, you have to break these down. Reg Tech is regulatory technology. Soup Tech is supervisory technology. And then you have the FinTech, and then you have the property tech, and then you have the insure tech. You can now monitor this in real time as opposed to in retrospect. This is what Wells Fargo is doing after the fact. Our advantage in developing this environment is that we can monitor the world now in real time. We create these laws, we create this FinTech, Reg Tech, Soup Tech, insure tech, and property tech. No other jurisdiction in the world will ever be able to compete with us. I don't care how big they are.
Let's hear from you, Tenneil, and then we got to take a break. Go ahead.
No worries. I think, see, Alan, really good laws that you put out there that should be changed. I do agree. Whistleblowing, transparency, those are critical. But I do believe that before we tackle, I guess, the freedom of information, my pick would be our very own Data Protection Act. Because to be fair, from when it was launched, I haven't heard much about any amendments, certainly how technology continues to evolve. And my biggest concern is that, we have the central banks, we have the Securities Commission, the Compliance Commission that all require more AML, more due diligence. But if we're retaining all of this additional data, We need to have minimum requirements set in place for legacy players or incumbents that want to leverage technology to, in fact, ensure that this data is duly safeguarded and protected. That'll be number one. And then I think that once we can protect the data under our custodianship, it's then we can focus on freedom of exchange, ensuring that whenever it's transmitted, it's safe, transparency of that data, authorized or unauthorized access. But I think it's going to start at the Data Protection Act. But that's just my opinion on that.
Michelle, it's absolutely correct, because in 2004, wherever they passed the first Data Protection Act, it was never a Data Protection Act. It was a description of what digital data could be. We have no data protection laws in the Bahamas. And I challenge the legal fraternity and those who claim that they exist. I'm saying to you, there is no data protection laws in the Bahamas. Okay? We imply things and get people to admit to things that has no laws of enforcement. And to become a data economy, the most important two aspects of the law is a digitization law, and a data law. This is a which we build on. We have government talking about data economy, green economy, blue economy, aquamarine, orange, marine, circular, silver, knowledge, orange, shared, carbon, all these things. They're all data. The world is now data. Data is the currency of the world. And we have no data protection laws. And I'm saying that we have the ability to give constitutional 3 things in data: privacy, protection, and sovereignty. Sovereignty is being able to own it, including your DNA for your medical and whatever it is about you, even for your plants. We have the ability not just to give these laws, we have the ability, the only place in the world, to give constitutional protection to these 3 definitions. If you read our Constitution, our people, by accident or by purpose, wrote these into the law. When interpreted from a digital standpoint, we need no modification of our Constitution. We need laws now to be enacted that taps into these qualities of the Constitution. But you cannot write these with an analog mindset. You must actually, like you say, purge yourself of your thinking and write this in a pure digital mindset, and then see if people in the analog world can understand what is it we create.
Okay, we have to actually take a break, but just for a quick correction before we go into the break, Wells Fargo was ordered to pay $3.7 billion.
Yeah, the old records was $1-something billion, yes.
$3.7 billion over loan violations. Lender to compensate its borrowers for illegal activity across some of its mortgage, car, and consumer products.
How much money they made?
Yeah, and America won't throw rock at us.
Okay,
but I digress. Let's take this commercial break. When we come back, we're going to continue our conversation about the continuing saga known as FTX and SBF. What a tangle web we weave. When we adverse, yeah, y'all know the rest. We'll be back after these words from our sponsors.
Blood sugar levels play a key role in your appetite, weight gain, and overall health. When you have a blood sugar spike, you can feel confused, dizzy, and even have increased cravings. Eating carbohydrates, sugary or fatty foods, and not exercising can all cause blood sugar spikes. But now you have help in managing blood sugar levels. Sweeties by Longevity was designed to help support healthy blood sugar levels so you can power through your day. It's a synergistic blend of minerals, herbs, and nutrients that have been proven to support healthy blood sugar levels. Sweeties includes chromium, an essential trace mineral that's known for its contribution to healthy blood sugar levels and improved metabolism of carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. Cinnamon bark has been included for its naturally occurring antioxidants and support of a healthy heart. And we've even added gymnema. It's been used in Ayurveda for centuries to help promote healthy blood sugar. All the ingredients in Sweeties work together to give the best support available for blood sugar control. Sweeties, the blood sugar support supplement from Longevity that helps control cravings and manage blood sugar levels through your day. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
Welcome to Sunshine Auto, the hardest place on the planet for rims, paints, and tires.
We are your auto superstore for rims, Lexani, Azaras, Trueform, Western, Lux, Fuel, Tracklight, Tough, rough racing, velocity, mud, all-terrain, and low-profile tires, cars, homes, and commercial window tinting. At Sunshine Auto, we put God first and customer is king.
Blessed love.
As you age, factors like health, weight, diet, and lifestyle can all impact your bones, joints, and general mobility. Even everyday exercise can lead to wear and tear on your body. Over time, you might start to experience stiffness or pain due to damaged joints or connective tissue. Ultimate Glucogel by Longevity was created to help you limit the effects of wear on your joints. It delivers a daily dose of collagen-rich gelatin your body needs for joint elasticity and maintenance. Ultimate Glucogel contains a 1-to-1 ratio of gelatin and glucosamine sulfate, which is a key building block of your bone matrix, cartilage, ligaments, tendons, and connective tissue. Gelatin's unique blend of amino acids not only help with muscle and joint health, but also has been shown to provide additional benefits for the brain, skin, and hair. Ultimate Glucogel. Natural, optimal daily support for joint health. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
And we are back. Welcome back to GPS Global Paradigm Shift on Global 99.5 FM. Michelle Malcolm here, along with my guests, C. Alan Johnson and Tenneil Desmangles. Now, whether we want to admit it or not, whether we want to stick our head in the sand or not, we have to understand that the eyes of the world are once again on the Bahamas. Our national anthem says, "See how the world marks the man of your bearing." And we've had the world mark the man of our bearing in many arenas. This is just the latest one. And unfortunately, it's not a positive one. There are some who believe that we cannot escape the negative fallout, the negative perception that is going to be associated with this. And the Bahamas. There are some who believe that some Bahamians who are really pushing that narrative internationally are nothing short of treasonous. I'm going to play a clip now where the central point of this story, this report, is the perception that this is all giving the Bahamas as it relates to us as a jurisdiction.
For many, the FTX saga has become a roller coaster ride, and the leader of the Coalition of Independents, Lincoln Bain, says it's really not a good look internationally.
U.S. authorities, they're very suspicious of our actions, and so they feel that there was something to hide.
Now, if you rewind to a snippet of the U.S. Congress hearing last week where Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez questioned Bahamian authorities' move to arrest SBF and a letter handed down by the Attorney General which suggested that it was done ahead of an expected extradition when the United States had yet to formally indicate anything of the sort.
What time was Mr. Bankman-Fried arrested yesterday?
I believe it was in the early evening hours, after 4 o'clock.
I believe it was
7 o'clock, perhaps.
It was in the evening after that filing.
6, 7 o'clock, yes.
I would like to submit to the record the statement from the Attorney General of the Bahamas issued yesterday on the arrest of Mr. Samuel Bankman-Fried. And after submitting that to the record, I would like to note that in this statement, they stated at such time as a formal request for extradition is made, presumably by the Southern District of New York, but they do not state when that request for extradition was made. Do you believe that information is important for us to understand in order to piece together a timeline, Mr. Ray?
Yes, sir. I certainly don't have that full timeline, and that's something that we look forward to learning.
Thank you very much.
Why arrest him the day before he's supposed to testify? Couldn't you wait another day to arrest him?
Bain says he's heard it time and time again over the last few weeks, international talking heads slamming the Bahamas for what they say has been a lack of transparency and accountability.
Then how was it that America could put together from overseas 8 charges, but the Bahamas couldn't put together 1 charge?
Now, outside of that, Bain says there is a mass consensus that Bahamian officials just took way too long to arrest SBF.
It took about a week before they said anything when the whole international community was covering this. They should have.
Bain suggests that everything now seems to be a well-orchestrated master plan, from his lack of immediate arrest and questioning, to the way in which last week's arraignment panned out, to the blunder Monday morning where SBF was hauled to court but no one seemed to know why.
There is a master plan that is orchestrated, and it appears to us to be some kind of tug-of-war going on, and it's being made clear. And when you have a lawyer saying that he didn't know his client was supposed to come to court, when everyone saw that the media covered that he was coming to court, how could the lawyer say he didn't know? This is strange to us. It seems like something is going on, and whether certain things are true or not, it's how it makes us look. It makes us look as a country as incompetent, and it makes it look like our officials are up to something.
Bail or no bail, extradition or no extradition, it's all up in the air at this point, but it is expected that in the coming days, the next moves to be made by SBF and his legal team will be closely monitored by U.S. watchdogs.
So for the record, it's no longer up in the air. According to the Nassau Guardian, while SBF did not appear in court today, he's expected back in court tomorrow because the extradition documents have been signed. So he is due back in court tomorrow now that those documents have been signed. And then I guess, I don't know what the regular procedure is once that's been signed, how long it would take for him to actually be returned to the United States. I don't know.
It could be, let me say, Michelle, the extradition documents have not been signed. The court order documents may have been signed. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Fred Mitchell, is who signs the extradition documents, and he could be taken out of the Bahamas 60 seconds after those that is done. Like you say, once Mr. Mitchell signs those documents, or anybody acting in the capacity for Mr. Mitchell, he actually becomes the custody of the U.S. Marshals or whoever they send to take custody of him, and they could go from take him to the embassy and treat him to lunch, or take him straight to the airport, or because they could just land one of those Black Hawk helicopters at the prison and take him from there.
So you're saying that the extradition documents have not been signed?
Yeah, the extradition documents can only be signed. That's the one to remove him from the country by Mr. Fred Mitchell.
So why is the guy?
So there's some documents where he waived his right to be to fight extradition. That's the document that's been signed in the courthouse.
So now it's just for Fred Mitchell to sign off on the actual extradition document.
Yes.
And then they could just whisk him straight to the airport.
24 hours a day. Remember, we had another sound that was taken in the early morning hours of the night. So essentially, once that document can sign, he's actually the property or custodial property of the United States government, and our BDOCs or Fox Hell is only the place where they'll be holding him until that chain of custody is handed over.
Okay.
And they could just come and pick him up anytime from the Inc. They could pick up the phone and they could be sitting with Mr. Fred Mitchell or somebody and simply say, "It's a go," and he's gone.
Interesting. Okay, so let's go back to that report that we just saw where Lincoln Bain was making some assertions. And part of the clip that I played earlier from BitBoy Crypto, he mentioned Lincoln Bain's name to say that they had meetings with Lincoln Bain. So Lincoln Bain was clearly, from all appearances, feeding them with information.
No, I wouldn't use the word feeding. Lincoln Bain is an active participant with BitBoy for a matter of a week or longer, maybe 2 weeks now. Longer, maybe a month. So
what's wrong with the word feeding?
No, I'm saying to you, I think they were exchanging information because these are like information in the public domain. And I honestly, personally, if you listen to that report, I don't see Lincoln is very careful in his words. He says that appearance.
Right.
And so even for the fact that we're not taking any proactive action, let's use an example. Everybody in the Bahamas is screaming these 1,600 Bahamians or 1,500 Bahamians. They're not 1,500 Bahamians. The key word is 1,500 accounts of Bahamians' origin. They may not be 1,500 Bahamians.
That could be 5 people with 1,500 accounts.
Right. Or it could be, like you say, multiple accounts, but it could also be some Bahamians and a whole lot of foreigners that basically had these accounts in KYC or whatever acknowledgement from this Bahamas type jurisdiction, from the FTX digital markets. And so, it isn't 1,500 behemoths. I do believe that a number of behemoths is involved in it based on, again, allegations. You have to watch this case very carefully because information is coming out of the court in multiple sources. And even some allegations have been made concerning that 100% of the payment for certain things may have not occurred in all fiat, that it could have occurred in FTT tokens as well as FTX shares. And so there's a whole bunch of, this is what we have to wait for the data for. But in the sense that Mr. Bain said, is our global perception of what it is. Because as we're learning more information, it becomes more clouded. For instance, we now can retroactively look back and see that this all started, we've going back as far as the 2nd, but the actual impetus of this happened on the 9th. And we have that explanation. Then you could come into where here it is that the commission is claiming that they had the 9th is information in the U.S. concerning sourcing of information, meaning that everybody would have had advanced information should they have known. Nobody's saying they did or did not. Then you come to the point where our commission is now saying they had a tipster, Mr. Salome, that spoke to them. And then it becomes conflated because here it is that you have a bank in the Bahamas that is directly related to the Attorney General from a previous employment, and we knew all about this Condo Act that was passed in 2014, and him leaving the government 8 months later to go work for this particular bank, involved with it, and they're the same people involved with the Moonstone Bank in the U.S., and now with this money coming back into the Bahamas, nothing is said. But the important thing is this: Alison Maynard Gibson was the lawyer for the FTX digital markets. But while this anonymous call or conversation, it seems to be somewhat convoluted, that this person was calling anonymously to the commission, and involved with this was the Attorney General and the attorney for FTX, who this guy was calling to report on. And you go, where are these overlapping, and we have no defined type involvement. And so this is why you have the new CEO of FTX,
John Ray,
right, saying that he has concerns, and he's saying that. And notice what he's saying, because if you look at these various statements and things that's in the public domain, he's saying, look, each one of these are silos. Why are there one container in one room and sharing of information back and forth? It's a real concern. He may not have said it, but if you look at the data, which I'm a data person, I analyze data statements and things that comes in. I'm trying to ask the same thing. Why is this convoluted, conflated data or statements being made and it's overlapping? And then what you have is you have the court system that said they made the audit, some information of some seizure, and the fact that the commission has no ability to touch the data field of what they have. So that means somebody within FTX must have transferred these assets to cold storage. Is that person under the instruction of the Attorney General, the commission, the court system? And so this is where we have not been clear and when we talk about transparency as to exactly what is going on, and we are asking for the data for access to the full data room. And I'm concerned for us, the Bahamas, as a person to understand data and tracking data. Forget the blockchain, just tracking data. Let's say in January, they do give the Bahamas government access, and there's some convolution or conflation or some alliance or something. The fact is, I can give you data to my computer. I can tell every single file you look at. I can tell directory and other places you went that you should not have went. And so this could very be a trap. It could be very well some information. And we have to be very careful because you're now dealing with an environment that has the ability of track and tracing data, that if this is something going on, it could be really nasty.
Very expensive.
And poor people, because if you're now supposed to be for information that directly relates to things that has occurred within the Bahamas. And we are still yet to have a full understanding in the capacity, even though they did modify the bill in March, the ability to seize and seize assets and liquidate the company. It's a lot of unanswered questions concerning overlapping, and the fact that we acknowledge that under the Extradition Act, that crimes committed in the U.S. essentially is the same crimes as if they were committed in the Bahamas. Yet
All right.
we would have wanted to break this thing, and we didn't press any charges. So I'm saying to you, what Lincoln says is a cabal of confusion that can very well damage us reputationally for the lack of clarity in statements. We have not moved to clarify, define, or anything else yet. We have simply said, this is what we've done. I hope you all understand.
The PR response has been dismal, for sure. Tenneil, let's hear from you. Let's hear from you.
Well, my take is this. I agree that, you know, we're getting news and information from multiple sources, and certainly that can be skewed. But and this is not necessarily in an agreement with Mr. Bain. This is actually just based on a standard or a principle. So a lot of people, we always talk about the EU and the FATF, the OECD. Those are usually our favorites, the World Bank. But there's an agency, a global agency around the world that doesn't get as much notoriety, and in this instance, it's paramount. That industry is Transparency International. Now, Transparency International publishes a global corruption index, and get this, it's not on any proof that anything untoward took place. It's just the perception thereof, which is why we'll see things take a turn that I don't think any of us will expect, but less is more with that. That's my only take with transparency at this time.
Wow. I just have a gut feeling that the worst is ahead of us.
Well, if you leave it blank, you leave it to people conjecture and their imagination, and you cannot disprove anything they said without the information. The only way for Lincoln to be proven wrong, or for Big Boy, or for anyone, even for Ray, even for what the name is, the lady in the House of Representatives, is to have the data on the table. And some of these data is very simple. When did we receive the request? Did we receive it from the CTFC, to the SEC or the FTC, or whoever, or did we receive it from the New York? No one knows the answer. What time did we receive it? Why did we act? Did we act on the warrant from the CFTC? Or it's so many unanswered questions, which then leave people to ask questions, which then plant thoughts. Negative thought. It's our human nature to go negative first, then positive. And once the negative take root, I don't care how much evidence you have, people are going to say, we're corrupt, we're hiding, we're doing this, we're doing whatever else. Because the problem is that the bad news gets out, and very few people come back to get the good news that they were wrong.
Okay, we got to take a break. When we come back, we're going to continue this conversation with regard to the SBF FTX conundrum that the Bahamas is unfortunately smack in the middle of, and what it's going to mean for us going forward. Stay with us. This is GPS.
At Lee Air, safety is our #1 priority. Flying since 1996, we offer scheduled flights into Fresh Creek and Mangrove Key Andros and Great Harbor Key, Berry Island, twice daily, 7 days a week. Affordable charter services are also available to anywhere in the Bahamas and the Caribbean. Lee Air Charter Services. Call 225-3267, 702-7127, or 322-1317 for reservations.
Understanding your microbiome, also known as your gut ecosystem, can change everything you thought you knew about nutrition, digestion, immunity, and metabolism. Keeping your gut ecosystem healthy and balanced is essential. Ultimate Microbiome by Longevity was specifically formulated to optimize this ecosystem. It provides the advanced support your gut needs through prebiotic, probiotic, and postbiotic supplementation. Our unique blend of probiotics includes Lactobacillus and Plantarum, healthy bacteria that can help prevent harmful bacteria from taking over your gut. Increasing your gut's population of beneficial bacteria creates a more balanced gut microbiome, which has been shown to aid in weight loss, skin health, sleep, mood, and may even help with seasonal allergies. Ultimate Microbiome also promotes the production of postbiotics. Postbiotics are key to help regulate your gastrointestinal health. To enhance digestion, Digizyme Multi-Enzyme Complex, a blend of 5 specific enzymes, has been added to Ultimate Microbiome. It can help break down food so your body can better absorb nutrients. Plus, we've added our proprietary I-26 hyperimmune egg powder to aid in the elimination of disease-causing gut bacteria and help your body balance its immune response. Ultimate Microbiome, the scientific, proprietary, and holistic approach to gut health that helps optimize your body's entire gut ecosystem. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
For all your building needs, it's Carib Construction and Project Management on Gladstone Road. We build it all: schools, homes, hotels, and more, including structures requiring a Phase 3 electrical contractor. We also provide project management services. The first step towards your dream building begins at Carib Construction and Project Management. Call us at 376-1556 or 341-4466.
One of the things I love about the mailboat is their relationship with Bahamas Air. I can earn travel points on my international freight and redeem them when I fly.
For me, online shopping is easy with mailboat to U.S. addresses and regular freight delivery to Nassau. Plus, I can always prepay customs and freight, and they always notify me when my package arrives.
Yeah, a lot of people think the mailboat is just for shipping, but they also offer a safe and secure storage facility at affordable rates, all in a central, convenient location.
We also offer passenger service into Freeport multiple times per week with a seating capacity of over 450 persons. With family movies on large screens, one hot meal included, and on-board lounge for snacks and soft drinks. We're the mailboat. We're bridging people, products, and places.
Executive Printers is your one-stop shop for all your branding and customization needs. Letterheads, envelopes, business cards, invoices, share and gift certificates, rubber stamps, vouchers, funeral programs, brochures, flyers, banners, and promotional items like mugs, water bottles, mouse pads, and key rings, all with personable service and great quality. No project is too small or too large. For great turnaround and competitive pricing, make an executive decision. Call us at 393-5011.
All right, welcome back to the GPS Global Paradigm Shift on Global 99.5 FM. C. Alan Johnson, Tenneil Desmangles. In our company today, we are talking about the continuing saga of SBF and FTX. Telephone numbers to call 3260271. 3260271, 3260272, 3260272, and our WhatsApp line for text messages and text messages only. It's 801-0271, 801-0271.
Michelle, before you continue, let me show you how a good mix-up could have. Everybody's talking about Clinton and what's the former Prime Minister of the UK, Tony Blair.
Mm-hmm.
They're saying that how he came for FTX. What the people don't understand is FTX was the title sponsor of a SALT conference, and they came for the SALT conference. And so, again, from a global perspective, they say, oh, he endorsed this and everything else. So this is where the blended information happens that you have. And so I'm just simply saying is, again, we lack no proactive marketing and public relations in regards to this.
Agreed. I mean, they spent a heck of a lot of money aligning themselves with major celebrities and organizations that would really help to elevate their brand. You're talking about a relationship, for instance, with the Golden State Warriors. You're talking about the Steph Currys and the
whole referees, all the referees was wearing FTX
all
on their
the
shirt.
referees wearing FTX on their shirts. You're talking about Tom Brady and his ex-wife. You're talking
Let me
about
ask you, Michelle, you think those referees knows how to count?
that don't matter. What matters is the fact that you had to see those referees quite frequently on your screen, and every time you saw them, you saw FTX. That's what mattered. It wasn't whether or not these celebrities that he was using were the brightest minds in crypto and Bitcoin. Apart from somebody like a Kevin O'Leary, who is known to be an investor, a smart investor, he was just using influencers. people who he knew had a huge following. Didn't have to do with crypto or Bitcoin necessarily, but had a huge following.
Shark say he don't know what they are, but he endorsed it.
Exactly. So you had your Shaq, you had your name on the Miami arena. I mean, he was making some serious moves from a PR perspective. If anything they did right was that.
Which should have been an alert, because you look at the commission structure from an exchange and have to ask, where's this guy making this type of money from an exchange, even on the volume that he was claiming? That should have been an alert. That should have been an alarm the software sent off to our commission.
There were a lot of red flags up from Mr. Allen, to be fair. A lot of serious red flags. And you could understand the Joe Blow getting swing. You could understand that, because they see all these celebrities and all these entities and they think, oh, well, if this person is behind or if this company is behind it, then it must be legit. Everybody relying on somebody else to do the due diligence. But when you see the level of companies, financial institutions that poured billions of dollars, put billions of dollars in this boy hand to go do foolishness with, you have to wonder, what in the world is going on? How can you not see all these red flags?
Right, but there's two aspects of those investors. Is those that actually in the fundraising aspect and those that actually had monies invested on the platform. This is where the clawback comes in. If I went to the platform with $100 million, buying some tokens and stuff when they were a penny each, and these tokens jumped to $5, $10, I may have went in with 100 million, I came out with $1 billion. Let's say I went in with $1 million, I came out with $10 million. And this is where the clawback goes in. And this, I don't want to go into the legal thing because there's some about federal bankruptcy laws that takes impact here. But essentially, imagine that I've made $10 million profit, and now that this has collapsed, I say to the people, well, I was in for $1 million investment, and I'm just going to write that off as a loss. When in actuality, I was in for $1 million, but I already took out 10. There could be a clawback now of those monies that it is. So it is, everything is not how it's in. This is a very intricate type of environment that even though you have these major companies, some of them came in as funding aspect, and some of them came in with some preferential treatment. You have to look at these agreements, which they're going to be looked at. And all those losses are not real losses. Understand this. Forget the money that he's lost.
Make it quick because we have a caller waiting on the line.
There's billions of dollars that have churned. Somebody took billions and billions of this. This is, remember, the $8 billion is what he got. What about the billions of profit and loss when this was at its peak that people have taken out and everything else? This is why this is not a very simple case. This is huge.
All right. Caller, welcome to GPS.
Good afternoon, Ms. Malcolm, and your guests.
Good afternoon.
Y'all are doing a wonderful, awesome job.
Thank you.
You can imagine if that man was a black man. What you think?
Well, can I answer that?
Yes, go on.
I have a platform that is going to replace FTX, but not doing what he does. Mine is going to be backed by gold and real estate.
Amen.
So yeah. I want you to say, imagine if. I want you to say, I'm going to imagine that there is a behemoth out there, quite capable, that have studied this for years and have been working towards all the bricks they've been throwing at me. I've been building a platform with it.
You're good, Brother Allen, I must say. I like listening to you. Y'all have a wonderful Christmas.
Thank you, caller.
Thank
you too. Now, she leads me to my next question, and that's this. A lot of people who really don't understand how the blockchain and cryptocurrency works is going to look at this and say, cryptocurrency is bad. Is it that cryptocurrency is bad, or is it that SBF did a bad thing using cryptocurrency? I think we need to explain the difference there. And we only got 6 minutes left on the show, Seattle.
Let me say something. First of all, tokenization, which comes under crypto. We've used the word crypto and cryptocurrency as interchangeable. Right. Crypto is almost a platform type of standard for encrypting data, exchange, everything else, even blockchain. For me, cryptocurrency is magic money. It doesn't exist. There's nothing to back it, nothing to substantiate it at this particular time. But at the same time, what Sam Bankman-Fried did was, in spite of crypto, he used crypto as the disguise for fraud. Straight out, old-fashioned Ponzi fraud. And in essence, I believe, and people can Google this, that cryptocurrency is the greater fool theory. I sell you marbles, and I encourage you to find another fool greater than you who will buy it from you, that one day marbles going to be more valuable than gold. And that's about it. But let me say this. When you begin to look at tokenization and this new frontier that's being developed, if we were to consider tokenization of the Bahamas, we would actually put ourselves as one of the most richest, unmeasurable, since, what's the gentleman, Masu, whatever, and gold and riches. Because if you just use an example, say we have 3 million acres. If we take 100,000 acres and tokenize it for $300,000 development potential just of those 100,000 acres, we would have a $30 billion in actual cash, not capitalization. Capitalization get carried into the trillions of dollars. But just 100,000 acres, times it by $300,000, and you have $30 billion in raising capital, pay off our national debt, build a 21st century infrastructure, structure, convert everybody to solar energy, and on and on and on. And that's only for 100,000 acres. So I'm simply saying that tokenization is the future of where the Bahamas and the world will be going. So we need not to overlook it, but not just consider what he did, it being the end of it. Consider it a crime, and consider cryptocurrency, not blockchain or cryptocurrency, and what he did was bad, but not blockchain and other associated technologies.
All right, let's let Tenneil get in here. We only have 4 minutes left, so let's hear your thoughts.
Okay. My thoughts is, to be quite honest with you, I like C. Allen. I believe in technology. I'm an infrastructure kind of guy. And, the thing about it is that in the traditional financial services, we have suitability and appropriateness. What does that look like? We have categorizations of investors. It may be retail, it may be professional or sophisticated based on the guidelines.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what investors have to know is, one, their risk tolerance or their appetite for loss. And I think understanding your appetite for loss means that you have to be more knowledgeable about the assets in which you decide to transact in. I think that, there's a very significant knowledge gap that must be addressed. Do I think that cryptocurrency is all bad? Of course not. When we think about the technology in itself, these tokens aren't printed out of thin air. By extension, they are when we consider a minting process, but it's the type of token. When we look at the SEC, the FTT token it's a utility token. See, now a utility token is basically used for an ecosystem, a platform for fees, discounts. But when we talk about security tokens, which provide you a promise of return or ownership interest, this is a bit. It makes one think that, fine, utility tokens may come under further regularization. However, when we talk about security tokens, commodity-backed tokens backed by real estate or precious metal, we can see all too clear the efficiencies at processing, settlement, security, fraud resistance. These assets aren't going anywhere. It's really just a matter of us going back to the rule book, and I don't think it's just a local thing. I think as a globe we do, and we go back to the rule book. We see what needs to be tweaked, and from there, I can see the industry seeing some normalcy. The volatility that we've seen since 2008 to now being reduced, but that requires mass adoption. Mass adoption requires mass education, but I feel we'll get there.
Very, very good point, Ed. We don't have time, C. Allen. We don't have time.
Just 10 seconds. This transforms professions as we know it. You don't need lawyers. You don't need real estate agents. You don't need a whole lot of things when these are properly executed. This is how transformational this technology is. And that is what we have to look at, the opportunity of embracing.
Gentlemen, I want to thank you both for the time that you've given us here today. I really do appreciate it. I'm sure that our audience got some good nuggets from this show that will help them to better understand this whole saga. And Boyd, I hate to say it, but there's a lot more to come. Stay tuned. We're going to all keep watching to see what comes out of this at the end of the day. Until then, I'm Michelle Malcolm. Thank you so much for joining us. Tomorrow is a Wellness Wednesday, when we will look at a subject of matter that is relative to your health and wellness. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a good one. Take care, everybody.
Global 99.5 FM reminds our listeners that the views and opinions expressed on this show are those of the host and